I think we've given people some time to get on here. So my name is Christy Thompson, and I'm the marketing director here at BIS Technology Group. Just a few housekeeping things before we begin. I have muted everybody's mics, so that way Philip has the floor. If you have any questions, there is a chat box over on the GoToMeeting. You can submit them there. You can send them to my email, to Philip's email, and we can make sure to answer those. We'll also open up everybody's mics at the end for a little Q&A. So I wanted to go ahead and say thank you for coming out today and taking your time to listen in. We're going to be discussing the top employee errors your employees are making that are sure to cause a data breach. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce Phillip Long. He is a technologist and entrepreneur who specializes in providing technology solutions and security consulting to businesses along the Gulf Coast. He's worked in the IT industry for over 15 years, and he's worked with 600 plus clients from Gulfport to Gulf Breeze. He's the current owner of 5 businesses and just got his Certified Information Systems Security Professional, and this is a certification that is backed and approved by the Department of Defense. So Philip?
All right. Well, Christy, thank you so much for that introduction. And I want to thank all you coming out and listening today. I think this is a very important topic, and I'm going to jump in. I really try to keep these to about 30 minutes. Usually they're about 45 minutes, but I would encourage you to stay around. We're going to have some special offers for you as well as a Q&A time. So I want to go ahead and jump right in and get this show on the road. One of the things that I think is very important for us to understand is that our number one threat to our business is our employees. And I'm not even talking about rogue employees. I'm talking about good employees. And that's important to kind of build into the plan from the beginning, that we want to take this reality into account. Most companies do not think this way, so it's why I wanted to have this this webinar, is to kind of put this into the correct frame so that we can take the appropriate actions moving forward. So I'm going to go through some things that are very dangerous, and these are not things that are necessarily in a textbook or whatever. These are things that we see every day. And one of them is checking personal emails at work. It is very dangerous because of the successful breaches, 91% of them have come from email. And one of the things that we recommend is that you block people from checking personal emails on their business computers, because if it's my number one threat and I have to protect from every email account that's out there in the world, then I'm going to have a real challenge in front of me. Whereas if I block webmail from personal mail from the accounts and only have one corporate mail, and that corporate mail is filtered well, then I'm going to be in a lot better position. And really, you can do this for almost no money, because most people have a firewall that will do that with a checkbox. So that's a very practical solution. And I encourage you, if I use a geek speak word, or if I say something that you want more clarification on, please go ahead and put it in the chat box, and Christy is going to be narrating, and she can stop me and I will explain some things, because one of the big things I want to do is I want to communicate really the real life world things to you guys so that we can be more secure together. All right, the next thing is not following proper password management. It is, again, the number one or number two way that people are hacking accounts, is they're using common passwords. And if you really want to know what's going on in the world, there's these data files. They call them rainbow tables. You could Google that and you could learn really more about it. But in essence, what it is, it's the bad actors. They are storing up files that they hack. If they get a username password combination, they store it and they share it out on the dark web, and you can download these files, and they're literally terabytes in size, which is a large amount of data, especially whenever you consider that they're text files. So what they'll do is they'll load up a program that will basically just begin to go through this list of usernames and passwords that have been hacked, and they will continue to hammer your machine with them until hopefully they can actually crack the password. And if you don't have your thing set up right, it is very likely that they will eventually crack it. Time is of the essence there, but if you're using password with a capital P and a at symbol and password 1, you're going to get hacked very quickly. And one thing to also note about passwords is that a password that was good 5 years ago is no good anymore. The complexity has to be increased because of the tools that the bad guys are using, the amount of them that have been hacked and are out in the wild, as well as the computing speeds have increased so they can attempt more passwords in an hour because the computers are just faster. All right, another one is often overlooked is leaving sensitive data around the office. You have to be mindful of what type of files that you're leaving out. A lot of times we refer to this as a clean desk policy. You never know who's coming in your office. It could be the cleaning lady. It could be, somebody, they're doing a tour of your office and they walk through and they pick up a file. So you really want to be cognitive of what type of data is laying around the office. I've used this story before, but I went to a medical practice in the way their office was designed. When you walked in the door, straight across the hall was the records room. No lock on the door open, and literally thousands of records. And to get to the lobby of their office, you basically had to go down that hall and take a left. And, you're considerable amount away. You need to be cognitive where the files live. Are they behind a locked door? Because, I literally could have walked out of there with a double arm load of files. And on the dark web, a medical practice, the file that they keep in a medical practice is worth between $50 and $100. So, if I were to be a bad guy and I needed to make, a few $1,000s, I could have walked out of there that day with no one knowing, with a few $1,000s worth of medical files. So, moral of the story is think about where your data is and be sure that it's not accessible to people. Also, another big thing is clicking on malicious links or opening bad attachments. It's something that you really need to have some form of ongoing training, because that threat vector changes over time, but you really need to be cognitive of what you're clicking on. I think maybe it was the last webinar we did was talking about how to spot a phishing email. That's out online. If you'd like to view it, we recorded it. We can send you the link so that you can record it, and we really go over in detail some of the things, the way that these spammers are trying to get us to click on things. So that's another really major component of how breaches are happening by employees. And it also goes back to what I said the first one is that you want to block your people from being able to check those personal accounts on your equipment. Another one is not properly disposing of hard drives, and we have to think that hard drives are not just in computers. Of course, they're in laptops, they're in office equipment machines like copiers and printers. There's a lot of ways that data is being put on these hard drives, and you can't just throw a computer away anymore. We have a service that is really, it's a loss leader for us. We don't make any money. We pass the charge on to you and the handling. I know we're losing money, but it's the right thing to do. We have what's called a certified data destruction, where they'll take a hard drive and they'll literally run it through a machine like a paper shredder, and it shreds it up into pieces. And that's really what we need to be doing with our hard drives. The other components in a computer aren't important. They're not going to house data on them like the hard drive is. So you can take the hard drive out, and you can take the machine to a metal recycling place, and they'll give you $1 for that computer, but you'll have not hurt the environment. And if you take the hard drive out, I think we charge $25 for a certified data destruction per hard drive, and that's really what you need to be doing, because that hard drive houses data that you don't want to get out in the wild. Another one is visiting malicious websites. If you don't have some form of filter on your internet, you really are leaving yourself open. You need to be able to block those malicious websites using some form of a site filter. This is another thing that we have a big challenge with our clients, even in that we tell them, and we even send them lists for the categories of things that you may want to you may want to block. And it's a struggle sometimes. There's like 38 categories on the SonicWall web filter, and it takes a minute to go through them, but it's time well spent, because that will actually not only help with security, but it'll also help a little bit with productivity if you're blocking, say for instance, social media. And again, I'll say all that, and then I'll turn around and I'll also say that, you want to be sure that you don't ruin your culture being a web filter freak and make all the employees mad at you. But there's a balance there, and again, if you have questions or whatever, I'd be happy to kind of walk through that. I've even met with a lot of clients with their staff and kind of explained to them that it's not the boss trying to be a jerk. It's actually, we're trying to protect our network. We're trying to protect the livelihood that it provides, that this business provides for all the employees. Another one's losing company devices. From a HIPAA standpoint, from the healthcare industry, I believe 35% of data breaches over the years have come from somebody losing an external hard drive or a cell phone. There's been some major breaches caused from that, so you really want to have some measure in place in order to protect those company devices. Another thing is managing your own IT. It's something that I really believe that most companies, one of the questions I ask new potential clients is, and I'll say it with a straight face, and I'll ask them, how much money are you making managing your own IT? And, I say that with a straight face, and I look at them, and it takes them a second, and they go, well, nothing. And I'm like, that's my point exactly. That's why we have accountants. That's why we have attorneys, and all the various sectors of services that we get from individuals who are trained in that. And I really think it's a mistake in today's environment, because I really believe that it takes a full team to manage a network, because you only know what you know. And our biggest competitor, I'll be right up front, is I got a guy. And the people that I do get to evaluate their networks and they got a guy, they're in pretty bad shape normally. And of course they love the guy, but I'll go back to what I said earlier. You only know what you know. And you don't know if you don't know about a threat, you're not going to be prepared to defend against that threat. So I really believe it takes a full team of people to be able to put you in a position to where you're going to have lower your cybersecurity threat, and also that will in turn increase your uptime. So I want to go into some real fixes about what needs to take place. Here's 6 things you must do to prevent employees from causing breaches. One is very timely. We just released a blog today, and I shot a quick Facebook Live on it because it's so important that you don't get behind, and that's upgrade end-of-life operating systems. If you don't know yet, Microsoft is going to be end of life, meaning they'll no longer support and make patches and security updates for Windows 7 operating system, as well as Server 2008 and Exchange 2010, and there's some other products as well. but the main ones are going to be Windows 7 and Server 2008. About 45% of our clients currently run Windows 7. So we have a lot of upgrading to do. Now, this date isn't until January 14th of 2020. So we've got basically 17, 18 months to get this done. But of course, that time will go by quickly. And I say this for all of you to go ahead and let's get an asset list up and figure out what the steps are going to be so that you can plan for it. One of the things that I really take a lot of time and focus on is managing assets. Because if you're not managing your assets, they're really not even an asset. They're actually a liability. And if you don't upgrade your Server 2008 server and you don't upgrade your Windows 7 machines, they're going to be a huge liability come January 2020. This is probably the biggest one and the one that I get the most. I don't get any real interaction. Very few companies actually train their employees on cybersecurity regularly. And it is one of the biggest things because, like I had said earlier, employees are your biggest risk. And they're not hacking systems, they're hacking people. And like any other type of training that you have ever done, you will find that it's the stair-step approach is what I call it. Basically, you're not doing it. You train people on it. They have a bump, and then it kind of flattens out, and over time it'll begin to trend downward. So then you have to do it again, and you have to do a bump, and you again over time. You train people on cybersecurity, and there's some very effective ways to do this, and it doesn't take like long classes of training, even just a reminder, even a short 1, 2, 3 minute video, just keeping security as top of mind presence is huge because 1 in 5 companies, businesses, small businesses, just like us, they experienced a breach last in 2017. So that's 20%, and you just statistically you roll that out. That means you're going to have a breach within 5 years, and you don't need to not be ready. You need to do everything you can to prevent it. And a lot of companies actually the numbers get skewed because a lot of people, they never take the steps to secure it. So the same ones are getting hit over and over again. There's some data that I've seen on that, but still, you need to train your employees on cybersecurity regularly. Another thing that is huge is patching software. And that's not just Microsoft operating systems. That's GoToMeeting, Flash, Chrome, Adobe, the Acrobat suite. And really, there's about 150 mainline applications that are needing to be patched. And so just running the Microsoft or Mac OS patches is not enough. You need to be patching also the other types of software that you're running in your business environment. Good news is that there are tools out there. We use them, and they're very effective at doing this. So you want to patch your software. Also, a backup. A backup is absolutely core, fundamental. To me, it's almost like the last line of defense. It's where we have, they've gotten me. Okay, they've encrypted my live data. Well, at least I have a backup. And I often say that you're out of work, but you're not out of business if you have a backup. Another thing that you really need to focus in on is recovery time objective, which is basically, I have my backup, but I often draw this out on a piece of paper, and I draw it like a triangle, and the bottom part of the triangle is split in half, and it has one side is showing hardware, the other side is showing software. And if I have my data, I still got to have hardware to run it. And I got to have the software. A lot of people don't have their software licensing and all the things it's going to take readily available. And then kind of that middle section is the configuration. which user gets what permission and all those kind of things. And then at the top of that pyramid is going to be your data. So you really need to know, okay, I have my data, cool. Well, how long is it going to take before this data is back at work for me? Is the question. So there's a conversation that needs to be had so that not only do you have a backup, but is it the right backup for your organization? Another one is managing mobile devices. There's a lot of risk that goes into managing mobile devices. And of course, most companies are not buying cell phones for all of their employees anymore. And it's what's called BYOD, which is bring your own device. And you wind up having this environment where you have a person with your data on their personal phone. And what happens if they quit? What happens if they lose the phone? What happens if they let their kids play on a device? And there's also another whole line of conversation that we're really having a discussion on is the way that you set up your wireless inside your office is important, because you don't want a device that's leaving an environment, a secure environment like your office should be. They take that device home, they do God knows what using that mobile phone, and there's a huge increase in data theft, applications that are stealing data from your cell phones, and you take that and you bring it back into a secure environment. Now I have a mobile device that is now connected to a network that is the same as my servers are on and my day-to-day operations is on. So what we're recommending is putting in two wireless networks, one being that all it does is give you access to the internet, and then the other one being for a device that never leaves that environment. And again, if you have questions on some of this stuff, I'm happy to talk with you offline, because that's a major component in security, is this piece right here. So I'd be happy to talk more about it. Also, another thing is create and enforce policies. I cannot tell you, I've been doing this 18 years, and I cannot tell you the number of times I have sat in a owner's office and them said, well, if I catch them doing X, Y, or Z, surfing porn, going to social media or whatever, their butts would be fired immediately, and then, we have tools that will allow us to monitor just internet traffic. And I come back and show them the report, and I usually have a smart ass comment, because that's maybe a little bit of me. I'll say, well, I don't know, man. You think you can run this place without all these people? And it's a wrong approach, is I guess my point. You really want to have policies in place, and then you want those enforced. And it's, the technical term is security through obscurity, which basically means is that all of the enforced policies are taking place outside of the user's control. You don't say, don't surf porn. You set the router up to where it has a filter so that you can't go to porn sites, or social media. Or maybe you do it where, look, man, you can surf social media from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. In the day, but other than that, it's not in there. And again, verbal policy, having a policy is good. Verbal policies is usually no good at all. And then you want to also take that step and configure your security tools, which probably everyone on this call has the ability to do that within their network, and they just haven't set it up. Statistically, firewalls being set up, I think 80% of them are not set up correctly statistically. So there's a lot of room for improvement in all areas. We'll talk to you about three policies that are really, really, really important. And if you're a client of mine, I'll work with you. If not, we'll talk about it, because these policies mean a lot. Because one of the big things, I'm actually in the process of writing a white paper and doing some videos on how to prepare for a cyber attack. How to be on the proactive offense of it. And one of the first things is governance, is policies and procedures, because of the liability that goes in it. And it would be a long conversation that I'm not going to have here, but I I am seeing already where attorneys are basically there's whistleblowers within organizations, and they are putting themselves, an organization is putting themselves at great risk because they don't have it documented and they don't have a signature from the employee that they have agreed to these policies. It really leaves you open to a lot of litigation, possible fines, and really just, if nothing more than a reputation hit. And it's not hard to put these policies in place and have people sign them so that you're actually prepared. My take on things is that we as business owners need to look as if we are gonna get hit. And whenever we do get hit, we've done our due diligence, we've practiced our due care, and we're going to be in a position of not shame nor negligence. We're going to be in a position of, hey, you know what? If it can happen to if Lehman Brothers or Target or all the big companies that have taken a hit, then it could happen to me. But I have done what it takes to be prepared. Therefore, there's no shame in my game. The problem with cybersecurity is that if you have a breach, you're not looked at as a victim. If you were to have your car broken into, or if you were to have, some violence imposed on you, you'd be a victim. People would rush to your aid to help you. If you have a breach in client data, in records, people either assume that you were negligent or at least irresponsible. So you have to do these things proactively. This is one that's huge, and I kind of touched on it earlier with bring your own device policy. You've got your clients. I was dealing with this, it was last week, and there was a particular employee that they were going to fire. They had a lot of emails that were on their phone, and the employee would not bring the phone back to have them remove the email account. Well, you need to have this written up on the front end that says, hey, if you don't bring that phone back, you've approved for me to remote wipe it. You've approved for me to set your phone back to factory defaults, because we were running some software on their phones that would encrypt it and give us the ability to do remote wipe, but they had no policy in place. And I'll tell you, if you go wiping people's phones out, you're gonna, and if they wanted to sue you and you didn't have a policy in place, you're probably gonna be held liable for losing their baby pictures. And Lord knows how much a baby picture might be worth. It could cost you a lot of companies. So you really want to have this bring your own device policy. You want to have it, fit your needs. And then you also want to have your employees sign it so that they are under the understanding that if you don't do X or Y, I will remote wipe your phone, and you have agreed to this. Another one's internet usage policy. Like I'd said earlier, this is another one that there's a lot of verbal policies out there in a lot of companies around here, and they are they're no good. They're useless. That you can't really discipline people off of them per se. Fortunately, in Alabama at least, we're a right to work state, so we don't get in a lot of trouble. But you don't want to run your business that way. It's too easy to do it right, and all ships rise with the tide when you do it right. Your overall exposure goes down, your overall uptime goes up, and your chances of getting in trouble from from an HR perspective is improved as well. So you really want to have an internet usage policy that states in writing what is real and what is not real. And these documents don't have to be fancy. That very document that I was speaking of earlier that has the 38 categories that a sonic wall firewall filter blocks, that could be part of your policy. And it could say that, we have every intention, this is the sites that we deem, but if it were by chance that you could access one of those sites, that's against company policy, and you won't do it. And you'll notify us to tell us that you can indeed access those types of sites. So again, you really want to have that internet use policy. Also, the use of company equipment policy is very important. I have seen time and time again where personal data and corporate data get mixed. And part of this policy also is you can have a write-up in there that talks about, if you're allowing them, are they checking and putting your email on their personal equipment at home? And how are they managing that? Are they sending files that should be encrypted in email, and and they're not happening? So you really need to have a policy that outlines this stuff, because a lot of it is foreign to a lot of employees. They don't think about the risk. They think about I got to get a job done, and this is the fastest, easiest way to get it done, and they don't consider the implications that might happen. And these policies will help you kind of live out that life in before it happens, and so that you can communicate, and you can also cover yourself in the event that something does happen. All right, so we're going to be wrapping up here. The question always gets to this phase. I have a lot of people, and they think this stuff is interesting, but over 50-60% of people never take action. And I always like to point it out. In my training for my CISSP, one of the things that you always want to reiterate is the fact that who makes these decisions is senior management, is owners. And they're the ones that are going to be held liable. If an employee does something that gets you in trouble, that's bad. And they might have some, depending upon how malicious it was, but ultimately the person who's going to take the hit is the business owner or senior management at some level. So I asked the question, what are you going to do with this information? And, I want to certainly do my part, because one of the things that, as I said earlier, the biggest problems is security and training. And we offer for our clients up to 200, even if you're not my client. If you came to this webinar and you have 200 or less employees, I will give you free web-based security and compliance training. That's normally about $299, and it's absolutely free. All you need to do, and I'll have the email here. If you email events at Ask BIS, I'll be happy to give that to you, because one of the things when I was taking that CISSP course, it was very difficult, and it took a lot of time, and I was thinking of how best I could use that. And so I want to raise awareness, and I want to provide really very practical, where the rubber meets the road for small businesses along the Gulf Coast, ways that we can prevent security. I'm in some peer groups and with people all over the country, and I hate to say it, but our area, the South down here, we are very lax. I think we're making some ground up for sure, but we are very lax as it comes to cybersecurity, and we're leaving ourselves exposed. And I want to play my part in trying to in doing, to protect and to help out. So that's one thing I'm doing. Also, another is we'll give you guys another area that is massively overlooked is mobile device management. And if you came to this webinar today, you're eligible for that as well. And, who are these things for? Really, they're absolutely for everyone who touches a computer. Of course, we're focused on the business world, not so much the home world, but if you're on this call, then you're a business owner, and that's going to be, all this is going to be free for webinar attendees. All I ask is that before the 31st of next month, you let me know about this particular offer, because we kind of change, and we try to keep the same thing from our standpoint, from a management standpoint of our offer. We try to keep the same offer going for a few months, and we change it. And again, all you have to do to get any of this stuff that we've talked about is email events at askbis.com. And we are more than happy to help. And even if you have questions, even if it's not something about what we talked about, I really want to be a resource for our area, and being able to educate and facilitate secure networks. Because the cool thing about it is that the more secure your network is, the more more performance driven it is, as well as the more available it is, the more uptime you'll experience, the fewer problems that you will have, because most of the incidents that we find are self-inflicted by people onto a machine to make it where it doesn't operate as well. All right, so I'm 5 minutes over. Now, that's not bad. I'm getting better. A lot of information, and if you guys have any questions, Christy, do we get any questions?
We did. Let's see. Okay. We did have, how do you stop employees from leaving company data around the office?
You know, I think that it's something that you need a written policy on, number one. And if you look, I do a lot of cool stuff. I've been very fortunate in some of the things. We do something called DISC profiling, and it stands for dominance, influence, steadiness, and compliance. And it's kind of like Myers-Briggs. Some people have heard that, and it's behaviors. Well, one of the behaviors that you find in most of humanity, I believe it's 70+%, they're going to be an SC. They're going to be steady and compliant, which in some ways is great. But whenever you implement new policies, they're very slow to change. You get a lot of resistance to change in the because of the behaviors of 70+% of the world is that they don't like change. They like steady, they like compliance. So the way you have to approach that is you have to first work with compliance. You give them the document. All right, guys, here's the deal. We find that it's very important that we've got to keep a clean desk policy. And, a lot of times if you can, I call it an ask campaign, where you pose the problem and you ask them to solve it for you. That's going to get them buy-in, as well as, meeting with them. And sometimes it even takes an outsourcing somebody. I work with companies doing this sometimes, because the shame of it is a prophet has no merit in their hometown. You can I experienced this with my own company. We've engaged in with a business coach that is helping us through some areas, because we know what to do, but we struggle in getting it done. Well, just like I think it's wrong for people to handle their own IT, I think it's wrong sometimes, or not wrong, or it's not best if they can't solve their own problems. Well, get that solved, because it's holding your company back. It's holding back what you do for the world. It's holding back your employees from reaching their goals. So I would say write a policy, ask them, or really I would start by asking them. Tell them that it's something of concern. I need your help in helping me. Give me some ideas, then get a policy written up that everybody can agree upon. And if you just really can't move forward, then get somebody to come in and help you with that.
Okay, you had mentioned rainbow. Could you repeat that, please?
Yeah, it's called a rainbow table. And I would not go out and download one. I wouldn't click on links to get one, because this is where the bad guys live. This is what they do. But it's called a rainbow table. And in essence, it's a big old text file. And that's why, if you know anything about file sizes, a text file is normally very small. And these things are terabytes big. That's how many usernames and passwords that they've assimilated into this file. Does that answer the question, Christy?
It does. There was one, I believe, two other questions that came in. How should I manage my passwords?
I like a product called LastPass, LASTPASS.com. It is what's cool about it is the free version will help you manage your own, and it'll move. It's like a plug-in, say if you're using Chrome. So any device that you use Chrome on, it'll automatically have your passwords there and ready for you. Kind of one of the trends that we're seeing in password management is the fact of using a phrase, something that you can easily remember, but it would be hard to guess. but something that one of the problems with passwords, and I know we all experience this, is you can't remember the damn thing. And you've got this one for that and that one for the other, and this LastPass will do it. It also has a paid for feature where if you're sharing passwords within an organization, you can have basically a group set up that will act the same way, so that if you're sharing a particular login and somebody changes the password, then you got to track down who changed it so that you can get it, and then you hit reset password, and it's just a whole nightmare. Whereas the LastPass has a paid for feature that will allow you to share that within a group across multiple computers.
Okay, I have one more question here. How are you supposed to dispose of hard drives?
What I'd said earlier is important. Is I really like the service, and it's a partner of ours, Gilmore Services, over in Pensacola. They're really massively set up. We have a disposal station here at my office, and we charge, I think, $20 or $25, and that's exactly what I'm paying Gilmore Services for a certified data destruction. Matter of fact, I think we're actually cheaper than they are, because he gave me a deal, and I'm not charging anything. But ultimately, the way it works is you bring me the hard drive, or a lot of times when we take computers, we're replacing them for clients. We'll take them and we store the cases, because we don't want to throw them away, the guts of a computer other than the hard drive, and we take it down to that recycling place, and we buy pizza for the guys with that money. It's no money. It's, again, you got to have a trailer load to get $30, but it's still good for the environment. And then we take the hard drive, we write down the serial number, we put it in a secure box. They come by monthly and they pick up those hard drives. They take them, actually they shred them here in a truck, and so they never actually leave our facility. And then they shred them, and it's like a paper shredder. And that's the best way to destroy a hard drive, because there is no way anybody's going to read that data. All right. Anything else? Anybody have any other questions?
That was all the questions we had.
Well, cool. Well, thank you, guys. I appreciate your time. I appreciate all of you. Some of my clients are on here. You guys are what make us tick, and we appreciate you. And if anyone else, if you have questions or whatever, we really want to be a thought leadership group. We want to give good information, practical information to business owners here on the coast. So if you have questions, don't hesitate to reach out. I'm always available, and there's 1,000 ways to get me. One of them is events at askbis.com. And I look forward to helping and working with all of y'all. Thank y'all for watching today, and have a great afternoon.